Welcome to Women Making a Difference, PJSAO women who inspire and motivate.
Attorney Sonia Owens, thank you so much for joining me today. Often the members of our community get to hear from me as the elected state's attorney, but you're working really hard in our office for the same constituents every single day. And so I wanted them to have an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. So thank you again. So why don't you start off by telling us about your role in this office?
Again, my name is Sonia Owens, and I am the chief of the Major Crimes Unit, and that is the unit that handles a lot of the violent felonies that are not domestic related, such as attempted murders, robberies, carjackings. We also do burglaries, auto thefts, home invasions, and we are pretty busy. That is one of the busier units and is the largest unit in the circuit court.
Yes, I know how busy you are. I see the number of cases that get screened and sent to your unit, and so you all do an amazing job. What inspired you to become a prosecutor, or maybe who inspired you? Why did you decide to become a prosecutor?
Actually, what inspired me was my experience as an assistant public defender out in Baltimore County. I realized that as a defense attorney, there were so many things I did not have control of, and I was always at the whim of sometimes overzealous prosecutors. And I knew that if I switched sides, I could have more of a say in what happened to individual defendants, more say in what happens regarding the case. And I interviewed with the deputy at the time, Director Soltrish Smoot, and she had also been a public defender, and she understood what that meant, because sometimes people deserve a second chance. And I had that perspective coming in, having done defense work for 3 years. And it just is a better way to make sure that justice is done, because you see all sides of the case.
What motivates you to do the work that you do each day?
The citizens of the community. I am a resident of Prince George's County. I have been for a really long time. I care about my own security and my own safety. I want to make sure that other citizens are secure and feel comfortable living in the county, where they can just live their lives and not worry about being victims of crime. So it matters to me as a resident to give back and make sure that I do what I can to keep citizens safe.
What unique perspective do you bring to this job?
I think just the perspective of someone who's been on both sides. I think that you have to have a holistic approach to prosecution. You can't just think about the crime. You have to think about the individuals committing the crime, the victims of the crime, and everything that is impacted by the crime and the community. It has to be wholesale. A lot of our defendants are younger people, and they shouldn't be treated the same as a 30-year-old man. I think that all of that has to be taken into consideration. So what I think I bring to the table, and what I try to impart on the attorneys who I supervise, is to make sure they think about the case as a whole, every aspect of it, and not just prosecution and conviction and incarceration, every aspect of the case. And if that means diversion programs, if that means giving a second chance, if that means you don't have evidence, you need to dismiss the case, it's whatever it means. That's what I think that I bring to the table, or I try to every day.
So Sonia, tell us about one of your most challenging cases.
One of my most challenging cases involved a young man who had robbed a convenience store. And as I investigated the case, I realized that he seemed, through his videotape statement, to be really remorseful of what he had done. And also, he was just very polite. And it didn't make sense. Like, the case itself, I was like, what was going on with this young man? And it turned out that he had committed the crime because he wanted to buy a gift for his mother. And I do believe that, considering all the circumstances of the case. So I wanted to fashion a disposition where he would be given a second chance, because I really believed that he would not be back in our system. The judge agreed with me, and we fashioned a plea where once he completes probation, he would have a probation before judgment, which would spare him a conviction. And he has not been back. So that's been several years. It was one of those risks you take where you bet on someone. And I think in that case, I was right to bet on him. And I don't think we'll see him back in our courthouse, not for a criminal case anyway.
You know, that is so amazing. I think oftentimes people just look at prosecutors and say, those are the folks who prosecute you and want you to go away. And here you are saying, yes, this young man must be held accountable, but we don't want to ruin the rest of his life. And we actually think that he can be restored. And he has not seen our system since, which is so important because, as you know, some of our more serious offenders have priors. And so they may have had prior convictions and they may have served some time, but then they come back to the system. So when we have an opportunity to meaningfully intervene in someone's life and give them a second chance, or fashion a plea that is appropriate for that person, oftentimes, that is the best way to keep our community safe. So I want to thank you for your courage and your insight and your compassion. So I know that cases like that, have to impact you. So how does this job impact you personally?
Well, it is overwhelming. There are a lot of cases that we handle, and there are people that obviously are having really terrible things happen to them. And it impacts me personally in ways because I can't always do what I need to do to get justice for people for various reasons. It could be evidentiary, it could be rulings, it could be a number of things that happen in a case. Obviously, jurors are people. And sometimes as overwhelming as I might think the evidence is, the jury may disagree and they may not convict. And those are things that I can't necessarily control. But I think my role is to make sure that the victims know that I've done everything I can, and all parties know that I'm doing everything I can with an eye towards justice, because that is what my job is. But that can be hard sometimes because you can't always get justice, whatever that is, in any given case.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And that is always, something that challenges us here in the office is, our goal is to get justice, and justice comes in many forms. And times it's that the victim wants an opportunity to be heard, and they want to believe them. And we are there as their advocates, and we work with them both, obviously at trial in the courtroom, but then also outside as well, providing, housing assistance and financial assistance and other things that can assist our victims. And so I really want to thank you again for the compassionate approach that you take. And I could tell that this job is very meaningful to you, and it is part of who you are as a person. So that is awesome. With the, focus both nationally and locally on police reform and criminal justice reform generally. How do you feel that this conversation will impact our office, and the work that we do?
I do think that it's going to impact our office positively, because even though sometimes there's resistance to change is a good thing. And I think because it's a national movement, to make sure that police officers are trained in a way that it's more working with the community in a way where we trust more and everyone trusts more. I do think most officers are great officers. I really like working with the Prince George's County Police Department. I have for a really long time. But I think everyone knows that if there's a bad officer or someone who just doesn't seem to respect human rights, those are the people that we shouldn't stand behind. The police department shouldn't stand behind, the prosecutor's office shouldn't stand behind, the community shouldn't stand behind, so that the reputations of police departments are ones that we all can be proud of. And I think that we're already ahead of the game as an institution, but everything can be improved. Nothing is perfect. So I think it's all going to be positive in the end, because we're all working together towards the same goal, having trust from the community.
Absolutely. So Sonia, do you have any parting thoughts, any advice you might give to aspiring attorneys or people who might be interested in becoming prosecutors?
Sure. I've been a prosecutor for a really long time. It's probably been like 14 years, whether it was federal or state. And it's always been a rewarding experience because I'm able to impact on different levels, whether it's some kind of break for a defendant or some kind of diversion for a defendant, or it's getting a victim to feel safe and secure because the person who violated them is no longer going to be able to violate them. So I think it's a noble profession. It really is public service. And everything that we do as prosecutors is meant to make sure that our communities are safe. As I said earlier, I, as a Prince George's County resident, I live here. So it does matter to me that I'm safe, but I also know that we all have to make sure that everyone, defendants included, have the opportunity to turn it around and become part of the community. And I think prosecutors need to be a part of that. Like, we need to be part of the solution as much as any other organization. And I'm happy to be a prosecutor and to work for an office like this office and under the Braveboy administration, where I feel like I'm given the support to do that. So I just want to thank you for always supporting us in handling cases in a way that's not monolithic, but pretty open to making sure that all sides of the case are examined and we get what we can do to obtain justice, whatever that is. And I appreciate that.
Thank you, and I appreciate having folks like you in the office who I can entrust to use their discretion wisely. So thank you very, very much for joining me, and I want to thank those who are viewing this conversation that I'm having with Sonia Owens, the Chief of the Major Crimes Unit here in the Prince George's County State's Attorney's Office.